A 50-year-old man collapses under a stage 4 liver cancer diagnosis. This biological breakdown is the clinical endpoint of a 50-year emotional script. The narrative began in childhood, dictated by a father who practiced extreme favoritism. His older brother was held up as the family's pride, while the protagonist was treated as the problem child, crushed by constant comparisons and criticism. He spent his adulthood trying to rewrite that script through sheer effort. He built a successful business, and when his father fell ill, became the primary caregiver, nursing him daily and providing financial support. Yet his father never offered a word of thanks, eventually giving his remaining fortune to the brother who had been absent for years. This lifelong lack of acknowledgement created a profound sense of injustice. The feeling of being unseen became the toxic psychological foundation that preceded his physical collapse. In Oriental medicine, liver wood energy resembles a sprout pushing through soil. For this man, expansion was completely blocked by unexpressed resentment. Stagnant energy generates intense internal heat, drying and hardening the organ into cirrhosis. This creates rigid conditions where cancer cells eventually take root. The liver tumor stands as a physical monument to decades of unexpressed and suffocated emotion. To understand the disease, we have to look past the individual organ and look at the family stage. Why is it that the problem child is so often the one who becomes the physically ill adult? In psychology, this role is the identified patient. They unconsciously absorb the family's collective tension. Patient originates from the Latin for one who endures. This node endures immense pressure to maintain fragile harmony until the system reaches a breaking point and they fracture. Within this framework, the cancer patient is the designated scapegoat for a larger, invisible psychological imbalance. This same dynamic plays out on a microscopic scale within the 37 trillion cells of the human body. A healthy biological system depends on constant, fluid connection. Cells function harmoniously only as part of a continuous communication network, sharing signals with their neighbors. A cancer cell begins when a cell is cut off from this network. When communication is severed, it loses its biological context. Isolated by the system, it mutates to survive. It behaves like a runaway teenager, aggressively multiplying in a hostile environment. The biological isolation of the cancer cell is a mirror of the emotional isolation the man felt within his family. The dysfunction is fractally identical, from the relationship down to the cell. If the disease is rooted in isolation, the treatment must involve reintegration. As part of a mind-body therapeutic approach, the man entered a role-play session designed to provide the communication he had been denied for half a century. The process began by uncovering a hidden, unconscious motive. The man realized he was using his terminal illness as a final, desperate attempt to make his father feel the regret he had never shown. In the role-play, a proxy for his father finally spoke the unscripted words, "I am sorry. I only criticized you when you were the one who was always there. Thank you." This shattered the psychological blockage that had held him for 50 years. He experienced a total emotional catharsis, an animalistic release of the resentment that had been drying out his internal environment. With the chronic emotional stressor removed, his body's internal environment began to shift. Within 1 month of this integration session, the medical markers that had been steadily worsening began to show a recorded reversal and improvement. Traditional treatments target the tumor by cutting or poisoning the tissue. However, if the underlying environment of cellular isolation remains the same, the body is still primed for the disease to adapt and return. True healing involves reconnecting the communication networks on both levels, resolving the family dynamics that cause psychological isolation, and restoring the biological signals that govern cellular harmony. To address the physical tragedy of illness, the work must begin by rewriting the invisible scripts that define our relationships.